So look, if you want to grow your wealth, your income, and increase the amount of time off, then these are the shortcuts that can help. Welcome to the Wealth Creation Podcast. Morning, everybody. It's Dan Latto speaking. Welcome to podcast 257. So in today's podcast, we're going to talk to you about trauma. Trauma is something I know a little bit about, given my history with family court and kids going missing and a whole bunch of stuff I can't even talk about for legal reasons. Good morning, Philip. Hope you're well. We're going to talk about trauma. And one of the reasons that brought this up this morning specifically was obviously Notre Dame being on fire and putting all fire out and the loss of all the history and all that kind of thing. Now, if you're listening to this from America, I don't mean Notre Dame, I mean Notre Dame, because that's how you say it. I know. I've seen the university basketball games, Notre Dame. So, you know, how do you recover from something like that? And it's not just to do with a building being set on fire. Like someone put on Twitter yesterday, how do you mourn a building? And I totally get it. It kind of felt like this, like not a depression, but like this, like the air had been pushed out of you. Do you know what I mean? And anything that, I've been to Notre Dame a couple of times. I don't even care about the damn place, right? But then there's 700 years of history, and they held the crown of thorns that was put on Jesus's head, apparently, if you believe that kind of thing. So, and that's fine if you do. DNA sample that shit. What's up with you? Anyway, but how do you deal with trauma? How do you deal with getting over something that's been bad, that's happened to you, that affects who you ultimately are, right? Because whatever you're going to go through, and it doesn't matter if it's trauma or if it's good stuff or if it's weight loss that worked or weight loss that failed, it changes you as a person. Or if you're going through a marriage that works out great, it changes you. A marriage that ends in divorce and a horrific divorce and kids being abducted and threats of stabbing, not to go into too much detail, then that will affect you too, right? So how do you get over that? So that's what this podcast is about, okay? So give you a really good example. So I'm 46 now. I wasn't always 46. I used to be younger. But when I was 37, I had a horrific separation. I found myself single again, fat dad, 2 kids, 37. Who the would want me, right? That was literally how I saw the world and how I started responding. And at that point, I made a decision to just start going on dates. We didn't have Tinder back then. It was Match.com. And I would literally have 2 dates a day. And I just needed to get out there and meet as many people as I could to see what I liked, see what I didn't like, see who liked me, all of that kind of thing, build some confidence, of which there was zero. And you go through this, having gone through this trauma, and you go through this period and you recognize that in 10 years' time, right? Like, think about this. And this is, you know, for my kids who I wasn't allowed to see because mum made loads of allegations that later turned out to be completely and utterly false. It's amazing how that is allowed to happen and people have stopped being able to see their own kids. It amazes me. But my goal wasn't next week or next month or even next year. My goal was a 5-year goal, right? And now looking back, and you know, we've gone through those 5 years and actually things have gone up and down and that kind of thing. But actually maybe we're now on a 10-year goal. The next one will be a 15 and a 20-year goal. And I still got those. And we say to the social worker, that's fine. My relationship will pick up with the kids again when they're old enough to understand what actually happened. So, but I couldn't do that if my goal was just a year. My goal had to be 10 years, well, 5 years at the time, and we got to that, and then we've extended it, right? Because life doesn't stop. This is like my argument with films. You know, in Top Gun, they fall in love, a passionate affair, everything's amazing, and then the film ends, and then the next day they wake up, he farts in bed, he leaves his clothes all over the floor, she doesn't like the way he leaves the toilet lid up, they go through a horrific divorce, it's all in the newspapers. Do you know what I mean? Like my argument with Shrek is you don't see him in 20 years' time when he's having an affair with another Shrek, right? Or whatever. Or when she's doing something wrong, right? So, like, life is not perfect for sure. Like, and if you think that your life should have been perfect, then you had a misdiagnosis. of what life should have actually been like, because life is not perfection. Life is not going to be without some level of trauma. You're just going to have trauma. So there I was, 37, single, 2 kids, fat dad. And here we are now, by the way, like, are we 9 years now? 10 years into the future, in a villa, married to a beautiful woman, a beautiful 4-year-old child, living next to the Mediterranean. And I could have gone down one path and ended it all back then, or I could have stayed the course to see what would happen. You know, in what's the film called, where he was adopted at birth by a film studio, and it's got, my memory this morning is dreadful. Anyway, she's wearing a little badge, and it says on it, "I wonder how it will end." I want to say Truman Show. Thank you. Truman Show. So the Truman Show, I wonder how it will end. I wonder how it will all work out. And I do think that about my life, and that's why I stuck around. And thankfully I did, because all this wonderful stuff came. And if you're going through trauma, all this wonderful stuff will come to you too. But you've got to do a couple of things. Okay? So the first thing you've got to keep doing, you've got to keep going. That's it. 1 foot in front of the next foot, in front of the other foot. At Notre Dame, 1 foot, we put the fire out. The next foot, they need to look at how they're going to restructure this thing. The next foot, how to put the roof back on. I'm going to sneeze. Excuse me, sorry. How do we put the roof back on? The next step, how do we put the spire back on? The next step, how do we make it entranceable? That's a word. How do we allow people to come back into it? And bear in mind that this is not the first time that this has happened to Notre Dame, because in World War I, it suffered with a bomb, and then they rebuilt some of that as well. And pretty much, you know, all great things have been rebuilt. Like, look at the Sphinx. I mean, they've made a mess on it, and they're covering up stuff there, by the way. I'm not even going to get into the antediluvian stuff and the Eye of the Sahara being Atlantis, but I do believe in that. There's an expedition going out, and I'm looking, do I want to go on an expedition? It's a fairly dangerous place to be, and I'm probably thinking probably not, let other people go do it. But there's a good chance, or there is a chance that might actually be Atlantis. But anyway, not even going to get into that. Stuff gets rebuilt, right? Buildings get rebuilt. And if it's all right for a building to be rebuilt, why is it not all right for you to be rebuilt? Sound like $6 Million Man, Lee Majors. Do you remember that? We can rebuild him. Why can you not rebuild yourself? You can rebuild your body. Like, there are certain caveats they have to put in. You know, if you've had a physical trauma, or you've got a disease or physical injury, there might be limitations as to how much you can do on that. But then I've seen people with one arm lifting weights on YouTube, you know, literally just one arm and they're lifting weights, or no legs and they're doing pull-ups, including the wheelchair. Do you know what I mean? So I do get that there are certain physical disabilities that you can't do that. And I also get that from a health point of view, some people have some diseases that you can't improve anything. And I totally get that as well. Okay, so you've got to pass on that. But for everyone else, there is no reason. Like for me right now, you know, after this, later today, I went yesterday to play basketball. I'm going today to play basketball. I went on Saturday to play, to get out of breath because I hate running. So it's a good alternative to running. So there is always an opportunity for you to rebuild. And it's not just your body. It's like, so what about your finances? Yeah, you might be going through trauma now. You might even be going through bankruptcy now. You might have gone through everything, lost everything, and now you're living in a little shitty room in a shared house, which is a great place to start, by the way. You know, my lowest price room, I think, is about £300, and that is a great place, a safe place, a warm place with Wi-Fi to actually start rebuilding. You know, if you're going through a separation, and if you're female or male, obviously if you're female and you've got children, that's a bit harder, because HMOs won't allow children and so on, because it's not fair on the other tenants. But there are ways around it, right? But whatever you're going through, you can go through that, but you have to take one step at a time. You're not going to do this in 6 months or a week or a day. Sometimes it can take 10 years. It didn't take me 10 years. It took me 5, probably 5 or 6 to fully rebuild. And we're still not there. There's still things that we want to do. There's certain trauma going on internally that we've had to suffer with, that we get flashbacks from. There's certain stuff, but it's not as powerful as it used to be. That stuff dissipates over a period of time. It just slowly deflates over a period of time, and so you get better, right? But Winston Churchill said it the best: when you're going through hell, keep going. He also said, don't stop to throw stones at every dog that barks. So pretty means every person who's having a go at you, just let them. Like, there's no point in stopping and having an argument. You stay on target for what you want to be doing. But with trauma, you've got to keep going. Like, if you're a young person, if you're a teenager right now, 13, 15, 17, 19, and you're going through stuff, there is light at the end of that tunnel. It might not be today, and it might not be next week, and it might not be next month, and it might not be next year, but it might be in 5 years' time when you get away from the environment that you're in. It could be in 10 years' time when actually you have your own children. And now you can avoid making the mistakes that your parents made with you, and you can provide a good environment for your own children, not one like you used to have, right? But you will never find any of it out if you give up too early. And so whenever you're going through trauma, you've got to keep going. There is light at the end of that tunnel. Sometimes you can't see the light because it's so far away. That doesn't mean the light's not there. It just means that it's either too far away, or, I don't know if you knew this, but bridges that go under rivers always have an S-bend, right? And the reason for that is so that the horse didn't see the bolt of light at the end of a tunnel and run towards it, because that was dangerous. So they always have an S-bend. If you can't see your tunnel of light at the end of the tunnel, it's because you're in an S-bend. And it's a metaphor, and I get that it's a metaphor. And you're going, oh, there is no light. I can see no light. My kids say they hate me and never want to see me again. There is no light. Well, what about in 10 years' time? What about when they have their own children? You know what? Life doesn't end on a decision, because stuff happens. People change their minds. They get new evidence that changes what actually happened in their eyes. They will change their minds. And you just got to stay on the sidelines, doing the right thing. Like, I'm talking about myself here, obviously. You got to stay on the sidelines, do the right thing. It will all come around. Patience is a great healer, and time is a great healer. Patience. There is a saying, and I've got something. What's the word? I've got something more powerful than power. I think it might be. Let's begin with it. I've got something more powerful than power. Patience. Patience is going to be the key for all this. But that's not to say you sit back on your laurels and you do nothing. You sit back, you be patient, but you planning, and then you're taking action one step in front of the other. And when you start doing that, you start knocking down the barriers that are in front of you, and eventually you have no more barriers left. Eventually you're like, you're cutting through the end tape of the race, of the marathon, the tape that goes across. You jump through it and there is nothing else to stop you, right? And you look back, and as you look back, all those things are experiences that are really powerful experiences that will help you deal with anything that's to come in the future. And if you were a level 3 person and you went through a level 5 problem, guess what? After you solve the level 5 problem, you're now a level 6 person. And you might have a level 7 problem. When you solve that, you become a level 8 person. When you get that, you get a level 10 problem. When you solve that, you're a level 11 person. And this is how you become more powerful over time. It doesn't happen in your teens. It doesn't happen in your 20s. Very rarely will it happen in your 30s. When you get to 40, 50, 60, and I know you're going, oh my God, 60, my life's over. For a lot of people is when life actually starts, because they have to work. They get away from the husband or the missus that's held them back, and now suddenly they've got a life at 60, and they're not going to die till they're 85. They've got another 25 years to go. So it's never, ever, ever too late, right? Even if you're 80, like somebody, created the piano, started learning the piano at like 83, because in their mind, they're going to live till they're 103. They've got another 20 years of learning the piano and the joy that comes with, right? So it's never, ever, ever too late unless you end it, right? Or unless you give up and you go, well, because life is hard. No one ever said that life wasn't going to be hard. Like, and if, again, we talk about this a lot on podcasts. If you think that life was supposed to be easy, I don't know who gave you that information, right? They were wrong. Life wasn't easy. It's not meant to be easy. And the human condition needs life to be challenging. Otherwise, one of the things I love about the Matrix is in one of the first iterations of the Matrix, they made it like really easy and let humans have whatever they wanted, and it didn't work. And obviously the Matrix is made up, right? I get that, but it didn't work. They had to make life difficult, and I totally get that. Life has to be difficult in order for you to achieve and rise to the top. Otherwise, there's nothing to challenge you anymore. This is what challenges are about. So look, if you're going through trauma right now, keep going. And I hope that's useful. We'll catch up with you in tomorrow's podcast. If you want to drop me a message, you want to go leave a 5-star review on iTunes, any of that, just come speak to me. I'd love to hear from you. My name's Dan Latto, and we'll speak to you soon. Take care. Hey, it's Dan here. Thank you for listening. Really appreciate each and every one of you. Please click like or subscribe to the entire podcast.